Hi everybody, welcome to Living Traditions Homestead. Well, over the past 8 weeks, we have been raising this year's first batch of meat chickens, and over the weekend, we processed them, we butchered them. 21 of them ended up going into the freezer for the year, and the last 21, which we're gonna be working on today, will end up being canned.
Now, on our homestead, we raised Cornish cross chickens for meat. We've done 2 series on how to raise the Cornish cross chickens. And we've also done a series comparing the Cornish cross meat chickens to the Freedom Ranger meat chickens, just to compare the differences between the two. For us, we're personally sticking with the Cornish cross because they just provide a lot of meat in a short amount of time, and it's fantastic meat. So if you haven't checked out those playlists that we did teaching you how to raise them, go ahead and check those out. Now, we have gotten a lot of questions about why we would pick a breed that we can't hatch ourselves. The Cornish cross chickens do not reproduce naturally on a homestead. They have to be purchased from a hatchery. And while I do agree that that is a drawback to them, there are just so many benefits to raising them, and the amount of food that you can get so quickly that we still continue to raise them. Now, we always make sure that we have other chickens on the homestead as well. We have a flock of chickens that we keep for eggs, but those are actually dual purpose chickens. So we could start raising those for meat if we needed to, but while these are still available, we're gonna be raising the Cornish cross because you just get a lot more bang for your buck.
In this round of butchering these chickens, we also decided that we had one too many male turkeys. We raise a heritage breed of turkey called Blue Slate. And so while we had everything out, we decided that one of our male turkeys needed to go. So we will also be canning the turkey meat.
We're down now to just 1 hen and 1 tom turkey. We had the 2 toms and they were starting to fight, so we kept the one that we thought was the most dominant male, the biggest male, and that's the one we kept, and we processed the other one. Now, our female turkey is actively laying eggs right now. Turkeys don't lay eggs like chickens where they lay, an egg every day of the year. They only lay eggs once a year.
And so far, we have gotten 20 eggs from our turkey hen. Now, a lot of them we've put in the incubator. So if you can hear a hum in the background of this video, it's because the incubator is actively incubating 20 turkey eggs.
Right. We're so excited to build our flock back up. We hope we have a good hatch rate out of the ones that we put in. We actually candled some of them just a couple days ago, and it does look like they're all fertile. So we're excited to potentially have 20 more turkeys to raise up for next year.
She is now just started to sit on her nest. There are some more eggs out there in her nest, and it seems like she's starting to sit on them. So she'll have an opportunity to incubate some of her own eggs and raise them up, so that's super exciting too. But we wanted to make sure that we had as many of them incubated in the house as possible to ensure that our family has a renewable source of meat here on the homestead.
Now, don't tell our turkey, but we actually snuck some duck eggs into her nest as well, so she doesn't know it right now, but she's actually sitting on some duck eggs too. So she might be a little surprised when she sees that some of her kids look like ducks.
Well, it's her first time. She doesn't know what her kids are gonna look like.
True. But today, the task at hand is getting these chickens canned. Like Sarah said, we have 21 of them to can today, along with the turkey. And that's no small job, so we need to get started. We're gonna show you exactly how to do this, and so that you can have food security by having canned chicken on the shelves at your house as well.
We are starting out with whole chickens. So we're gonna be breaking these down before we can them. Now, I'm gonna be doing raw pack canning of this meat, of this chicken meat, and I'm going to be including the bones of the legs and the thigh. The breast will cut off the breastbone and can that without the bone. And the wings, I have found that they really don't add a whole lot to my canned chicken. So we're gonna be keeping those separate off the side. I will put those in the refrigerator or the freezer so that we can just have chicken hot wings one day. Also, just before we get started, want to let you know that the chicken that we're gonna be canning, the skin needs to be taken off. So we're gonna take the skin off. canned chicken skin is really pretty yucky, so we're gonna get rid of that. But we're also gonna save the backs, the necks, and the skin so that we can use them to make chicken broth. So don't throw those things away either. Now, if you find a good deal at the grocery store on chicken legs, chicken thighs, breasts, or even whole chickens, you can do this process at home with store-bought chickens. It doesn't have to be home-raised chickens, and it's a really nice way to find a great deal and preserve them shelf-stable for the future. So you can see these gorgeous chickens that we raise, nice and plump. I don't know how many jars of meat we're gonna get out of just one chicken. That'll be interesting to find out. Now, I am handling raw meat and raw poultry, so make sure that you are taking every precaution possible for, you know, contamination, salmonella, those kinds of things. I always keep a sink full of bleach water so that I can rinse my hands or wipe up surfaces and things like that. So make sure you're keeping that in mind all of this time. The first step to this process is to cut apart a chicken. And I realize that not everybody knows how to do that. I forget that. We use primarily whole chickens on the homestead, so we cut up chickens all the time. But I'll show you just quickly how to cut apart a whole chicken. So the first thing is to start with a sharp knife. And a steak knife works really well for me because it's not too big, it's not too small. And we're gonna start by removing the leg and the thigh together. And you just start with slicing open that skin. This here is the leg, down in here is the thigh. And it's easiest to take them off together first and then separate the thigh from the leg. Gonna cut next to the body cavity bone here, and we'll start separating the thigh away from that part of the body. I'm gonna do the same thing up at the top of the thigh, and then I'm gonna pop that thigh joint. See, that pops right open. That's the thigh where it connected to the body. And then we're just gonna cut that off of the body. There you go. So now we have the thigh and the leg separated from the body, and you can see where the leg connects to the thigh right there, where that line is. We're just gonna cut along that line. Pop that joint a little bit. And then cut those two apart. That's how you separate the leg and the thigh from a chicken. For these purposes, we're gonna take this skin off. Comes off pretty easily, you just have to pull. That's the thigh. Sometimes it's a little slippery. Do your best. Next, I'm gonna take the wing off. Here's the wing back here. And it has two parts that we're gonna keep. There's this part here and like the drumette they call it, I guess. But I am gonna start by, I make a slit kind of down in the armpit. And that opens up that joint right here. And that joint is here, so I'm just gonna cut around that. From down here and then down in here. Loosens that up. And then it comes off really easily. We're gonna set that over here for the next time we have wings. Okay, now we're going to remove this breast, okay? I'm going to cut along this line here, just straight down into there. Now part of this is bone that you're gonna be feeling there, and part of it is cartilage. And I'm gonna put my thumb in there so I can kind of feel where the cartilage and the bone is, and I'm gonna cut just on this side of the bone and the cartilage. And basically I'm just separating the muscle tissue from the bone and the cartilage. You can see it's pulling away there. It helps when your knife is really sharp. It does most of the work for you. Okay, we have just separated, this is all one breast half. This is one of the really nice things about Cornish cross chickens. They just really provide beautiful, nice sized pieces of meat. This is just that one breast. And remember, we need to take the skin off. So now the skin just peels off like that. Okay, so these are the 3 pieces that we are going to be putting in jars. I'm going to separate the rest of the pieces off of this chicken before we start getting into the canning process. Again, we're gonna part it out just like before. Cut off the leg and the thigh first. I promise you that the more you do this, the easier it gets. And the first time, if you completely just butcher it and it is all hacked up, don't worry about it, it gets easier and nobody's gonna care and they're not gonna be able to tell because you're canning the chicken. Onto that chicken wing again. Start at the armpit. And now that chicken breast. Just follow the line of that breastbone and the cartilage that's there. The knife pretty much does the work for you. Here we go. This back and neck we'll save to make broth. Just pull the skin off. We're ready to move on to the next chicken. Now these 6 parts, 2 breasts, 2 thighs, 2 legs. These are what we're going to be canning in our jars, but first we're going to get several more chickens parted out and skinned before we start filling those jars. Kevin is going to help me, and that's going to save me a ton of time. Okay, we are ready to get started canning. We have 4 chickens all cut up, ready to go into jars. We're going to be pressure canning this chicken. You can't water bath can chicken. It's a low acid food, needs to be pressure canned. Now I have several canners, but today I'm going to use my smallest Presto canner. It holds 7 quart-sized jars, and I'm going to be using wide mouth quart jars today. The chicken is packed easier and comes out easier with a wide mouth jar, although you can use a regular mouth jar. I did it for years and years, and I'll probably end up having to do it again because I just don't have many of these wide mouth jars. Now we're doing raw pack, bone in, and we're not going to be adding any liquid. It's safe to do it that way. In fact, sounds like something you should do is add liquid, but you don't need to. It'll produce its own broth. Also in the quart jars, you can add a teaspoon of salt to each jar, but you don't have to. That's up to you. All right, we're gonna get started here. I am going to start with 1 leg, 1 thigh, and I'm gonna cut up one of these breasts and see where it leaves us as far as space. Now with a chicken like this, you want to loosely pack the chicken. Don't cram it down in there. And you'll want to leave at least 1 1/4 inch head space. Let's put that in there. See how it goes. Honestly, to me, I'm gonna stop there. That's a half of a chicken. A leg, a thigh, and 1 full breast. The head space is just about right, and I didn't smash anything in there. So I'm gonna move on to the next jar, and I think that just might work out perfectly. I'm gonna put 2 legs. And a thigh. And then cut up some of the breast meat. This one I'll put 2 thighs in. If you wanted to have all dark meat in 1 jar and all white meat in 1 jar so you could label them like that, you could go ahead and do that. I like to have a combination of both of them in a jar, so I'm just having a little bit of both. Now, what can you use canned chicken for? Well, lots of things. Casseroles, chicken salad. It really speeds up any meal that you need cooked chicken for and you just don't want to pan fry some or thaw any out from the freezer. It is really nice to have canned chicken on hand. One of the main reasons to choose canning meat over just freezing meat is because of potential power loss. We do freeze a lot of our meat, but we run the risk of not having power. We do have a generator, but the generator, that can run out after a while. So it is important if you're freezing a lot of your meat to have a backup plan. And if that backup plan is gonna run out, be ready to quickly can a lot of your meat. But just having it canned already really takes that risk away. Okay, these jars are almost ready to go into the canner, but I am adding 1 teaspoon of salt. I'm using pink Himalayan salt per quart just to enhance the flavor. Now the next thing we need to do is wipe the rims of all of these jars. There could be a little bit of fat on there, some chicken juice. So I'm going to be using a moistened towel, and I'm going to put a little bit of vinegar on there, and that really helps cut any of the grease that's on the rim of the jar. You really don't want anything that can prevent the lid from really making a good seal. We're just gonna clean off the rims of these jars. Okay, now we can add the lids. The rings, put them on finger tight, which just means not too tight. And now they're ready to go into the canner. Now I have already put the required amount of water in the bottom of my canner. Make sure that you follow the instructions on your canner to make sure you put the right amount of water in there. I've also heated that water up already, so you can probably see the steam coming up. Okay, they're all in there. Now we need to add the lid. We just need to turn this on. We're going to keep it on high until steam starts coming out of this vent hole. And then we'll check back when we're there. Steam is now coming out of this vent hole here. We need to allow that to continue venting for 10 minutes before we put the weight on top of there. So I'm going to set a timer for 10 minutes. You can see that we have another canner going. We still want to get all 21 of these chickens done today and the turkey. So we are doing double duty canning. So you'll see the canner going here too. Now the weight that we're going to be putting on here, this is a weighted canner rather than a dial canner. I have my weight set up for 15 pounds of pressure. Under general circumstances, you will probably be canning at 10 pounds of pressure. But I can at 15 pounds of pressure because we live higher than 1,000 feet above sea level. So we increase ours to 15 pounds of pressure. So once the timer goes off for 10 minutes, we'll put our weight on top of here and move on to the next step. The timer has gone off, so now's the time to put our weight on. Now what's going to happen is the steam is going to build up inside of here. This is going to pop up and the steam won't be coming out here anymore. And then after a certain time, this weight will start rocking back and forth. That will tell you that the pressure is up where it needs to be, and you'll set your timer. Now for quart jars, raw packed, bone-in chickens, we'll have them processed for 75 minutes. So when this starts rocking, that's when I'll set the timer, and when it's done, we'll come back. So the timer has gone off, which means this canner full of chicken meat is done. We're just going to turn off the heat and let it just sit here until the pressure comes down. Now, you'll know when the pressure has come down all of the way because this right here will drop back down inside the lid, and that way you'll know that the pressure is released. After that goes down, I wait, 10 or 20 minutes before I take this weight off, and then let it sit for maybe about 10 or 20 more minutes before you take off the lid. One thing that can happen when you're pressure canning is that if you take the lid off or change the temperature inside too quickly, the liquid can siphon out of the jar and compromise the lid seal. So make sure that you're doing that really slowly. The canner has been sitting long enough and it's time to take off the lid. Everything is still bubbling in there. Now let's take out the jars. Now I want you to notice a couple of things. I've placed these jars on top of a towel on the counter, and that is so there's not a huge temperature difference between the cold counter and the hot jars. That temperature difference could make these jars crack. So always put down a towel when you're bringing out your hot jars. Also, you'll see that I have them spaced quite far away from each other. That's so they cool down faster and the heat from them doesn't keep it hot so long. It just helps with the cooling down process. Isn't it amazing how much broth is in there? Remember, we didn't add any liquid. So all of that liquid is just the broth and the juice from right inside the chicken. Did you hear that pop? That means that the jars are sealing properly. Those pops are like music to a canner's ears. We always look forward to that. Now, these jars need to stay right where they are and should not be moved for 24 hours. Once 24 hours is up, you can take the bands off, wipe them down, label them, and put them in your cupboard. Make sure you check the seal, make sure that it's suctioned down. That means it was a good seal and will store for a long time. Well guys, I hope you learned something today, and I hope that you have more confidence about pressure canning meat. So if you're enjoying our videos, make sure that you hit the subscribe button below, and make sure you share this with other people who are like-minded and who may also want to learn how to can meat, specifically chicken. Until next time, thank you so much for stopping by the homestead. Take care and God bless.